I'm the model officer, and this is part 16, the final episode of how I do dioramas. So welcome back to episode 16. In this episode we are going to deal with the finer details of our diorama, and this is where we left things in our last episode. But if you recall, right at the beginning we said about making what's called a shadow box diorama. To achieve this, I purchased a 40 by 40 centimeter box frame, and then with some very bad carpentry made the box deeper, as you can see in these pictures. So here we've taken off our frame, and we're gonna, obviously don't want it plain, so we're gonna use some wood dye to darken it down a little bit. Very easy, as you can see by the product here. Sponge is all you need, good shake of the tin, and we're off and running. Literally all you do is just put the dye on and rub it around the frame, making sure you get into all the nooks and crannies because you don't want any bits missing. Making sure that there's a nice even coat. This frame will need a couple of coats of this, but we're going to whiz around quickly and do this, and we can show you the effect in which we're going to end up with that box frame. Now while I'm busy dyeing the wood, let me explain. The box in which you saw earlier, we're going to spray that black, just matte black, and that will give us a nice contrast. So here's our box frame with our dyed frame. The black box, as I said, painted black, and a diorama sits right in the middle. But as you can see, around the outside of the diorama as it stands now, that can't stay like that, so we need to do a bit of filling. For this I've used some plastic covered balsa wood that comes in quite big sheets, and cut it around the church, and that sits in quite nicely. Then we've painted that black as well, as you can see here, so that's all ties into our box. Now the other reason that I did this particular way, I wanted to try and achieve the person looking at the diorama to be drawn into the piece. So by making the steps coloured and taking up the full width of the box, that sort of narrows the person's view. Well, that's what I'm hoping to achieve. You can all see a little sneak preview of a possible background there. So as I said earlier, this is going to be down to our finer detail now. So our church is all in place, our main structures are all painted and ready, and what we're going to do is we're going to add some debris into the mix. First of all, what I want to do is I want to start with the bigger size pieces of debris, placing those exactly where I want them. So by placing our bigger size pieces of debris, we get an idea of where our debris is going to be falling, and where we can fill in with the smaller pieces and the finer detail, if you like. As you can see there, just off to the right is a piece that isn't debris, but it's something that's fallen off the altar. That will come clear in a minute. So just with a bit of super glue, we're just going around and we're just putting the finer details on. Now we're adding a few of the smaller amounts of debris. These are cork cut size bricks that have been pre-painted by soaking them in paint and leaving them overnight. We're just going to scatter a couple of those around to give us a rough idea of where we want to go when we start adding it in more bulk. One thing I would advise you, if you do debris of some description on a diorama, my advice is to start with the bigger pieces. Put them in place and then sit back and look at it. Keep stopping and looking at it over and over again, because once you start gluing stuff down, it's really difficult to remove it or to get it back to how you envisage it. So here what we're doing is we're just putting some super glue down, and we're literally just picking up small handfuls of the pre-cut cork bricks, pre-coloured, and we're just adding them in larger amounts in the areas where we want the main concentration. While we're doing that, I've noticed that we can pick out a couple more along the front steps to add to the effect. So there you go, that's the main debris sorted. Don't want to go too heavy with it, but I think that gives you enough of an idea of the debris in which there would be in this particular scene. Now we're going to go downsize in the debris, and we're going to start using some fine ballast, some dark grey, or sorry, light grey, and some sandy colour. And literally all I'm going to do with that is a little bit of PVA mixed with a bit of water. I'm going to spread it around the areas in which I want it to stick, and I'm literally just going to pick up a small handful, starting with the grey, and spread it around in a random sort of way. Build it up very slowly. Now we're just going to add in a little bit of the lighter stone, give a little bit of contrast. I don't want to go too heavy with this because it will stand out really heavily, but I want to give it a fair mix so there's a good even balance. Then just finally I'm just going to spray a little bit of the PVA mix over the top. It will soak down, it will dry clear, and you won't notice. And there we go. That's the effect that I wanted. Still got a bit more to do yet, but it gives the main bulk of the debris exactly how I want. So at this point it's a good time to add in our parachute. Don't want to go too mad with it, don't want to add the figure yet, but this is quite a bulky part that needs to be put in place before we go any further. So on to our final stage. For this we're going to use 3 types of the Pinnacle pigments, the brick dust, the dark ash, and the concrete dust. Now this is quite an easy way of doing things. All it is literally you open up a container, get yourself a little cotton bud, put a bit of the pigment on, and then just sprinkle it around. You can use a cotton bud to rub in where you think it needs to be rubbed in, or just leave it lying loose. Now I'm not going to fix this with any pigment fixer, and there's no glue there, it is just purely going to sit there. The reason being is that as soon as you start adding some sort of glue to it, you lose some of the effect that I want to gain by the dust. So there you go, that's a concrete dust. We've put a good amount round. Now we're going to move on to our brick dust. Again, we're just going to do exactly the same method, popping it around randomly to give a bit of contrast amongst our debris. So as you can see now, the colours are starting to mix and blend quite well. And that's all we need with our brick dust. So lastly, I'm going to use the dark ash. And all I'm going to do with the dark ash is literally just very sparingly dot it around in certain places, just to add to a little bit more contrast of that dust there is. So there you go, very quick technique of how to effectively get your debris and dust effect onto your diorama. So there you go, all of our debris now down in place and our church has all come together. Now would be a good time to finish the video. Oh, wait a minute. No, we're finished. This is the last episode and all that's left for me to do is to give you a reveal of our build. Loads of people for me to thank, for which I will name and shame those people, for want of a better phrase, at the end. Thank you so much for watching the series. I hope you enjoyed it. Until next time.